All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. It's a little after 5. So welcome. We're so glad you're here. We would do it if there was one person here, no people here probably, but it's just really good information to get out to people. This is Christopher O. He's a counselor over at Sierra College over in Truckee. And he'll talk some about his school and then some about I guess that now there's 114. I keep on saying 113. I just looked it up and they must have opened a new one. 114 junior colleges around the state of California. And we'll definitely leave some time for questions at the end. But the good news is it's a great system to get involved in. There's a lot of different ways and avenues that you can utilize the services of the junior college system to reach whatever degree or culminating program you want to. And save some money while you're at it and get hooked up with some really great people. So for most of it, I'll let Christopher take over and I'll kind of pipe in as we need. We are recording, as Adela was saying, and more and more people are watching online. The only downside about that is it's a little harder to ask questions as we go through. But definitely if you're ever able to not make a meeting, typically I definitely try and we usually get it up there pretty quickly as long as there's no technical difficulties, which hopefully it won't be tonight. But with that, I'll turn it over to Christopher, and then if you have any questions for me as we go through, I'll just be sitting here, and we'll get going.
Thanks. As Jeff said, I'm Christopher Old. I'm a counselor at Sierra College. I also am a professor. I teach psychology classes there as well. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about community college in general, Sierra College specifically, and then also kind of talk through the steps. Because the enrollment process at Sierra College is very similar to all the other community colleges as well. But so I wanted to start by having you just think about, if you're thinking about college or you have students that are thinking about college, right, what might they be thinking? And so a lot of times students are feeling like this when they kind of get toward their junior or senior year and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed already, college is one more thing, right? Some are thinking like this next picture, which they're kind of bummed. They're thinking, man, college would be great, but I don't think I have the grades to go to college, or I don't have the money to go to college, or that kind of thing. Right? Other students look like this one, and they're more frightened about the idea. They're like, oh my gosh, stepping out on my own, first time being at college could be kind of scary as well. But a lot of students are left like this one, scratching their heads. Right? They're like, I don't know what direction to go. And that's where little workshops like this hopefully are really helpful for both parents and students to get a feel for what are the different options and directions that someone could go. Because I'm hoping everybody will end up like this when they're thinking about college, where they're excited about it. Right? Because it is a great opportunity, and it's an opportunity that's available to everybody. You know, that's one of the great things about community college, is making college really accessible to lots of different people. So if we go to the next one. So first off, what is a community college? Who can answer the question? What's the difference between a community college and a university? You know?
It's smaller.
Okay.
It's not as big. In the classroom.
Okay, so the size is smaller. Yeah, that is true about most community colleges, not all. There's some really big ones out there too. But what's the fundamental difference?
The degrees.
The degree you can get. Right, right. And you know what? I have some cool prizes. We never had swag at Sierra College before, so I'm excited to have swag. There's a water bottle for you. Yes. One of the big differences is the degree you can get, right? At Sierra College, you can get an associate's degree, which is true with all the community colleges, which oftentimes is called a 2-year degree. Oftentimes, people will come in also just to gain new skills. They may want to get what's called a certificate, which is a small set of classes in one particular subject. So if we go to that next one, there's a lot of options if you start at community college. So some people will come in just to get that skills certificate. Other people will go on and get their associate's degree, that 2-year degree. It's called a 2-year degree if you go full-time each semester for 2 years. You can get a degree in 2 years. Full-time would be 5 classes a semester, 15 credits a semester to get to 60 units, which is what an associate's degree is. So a lot of our students aren't full-time. A lot of our students are working and going to school, and so it may take them longer than 2 years to get that associate's degree. But that's okay. That's another part of the option. So some students come for that certificate, some come for the degree. A lot of our students come as a starting point, and they want to transfer on to other schools. And so we have agreements. The California Community College system has agreements with the UCs, like UC Berkeley, UCLA. It has agreements with the CSUs. So Chico State, Sac State, those types of schools. And then also with UNR, being kind of a neighbor school here, we have a lot of students that come to us to start and then transfer to UNR. And then go on from there, you know, with their rest of their academic careers. I know there's an English teacher over at Truckee High who, whenever I give a presentation, seems to somehow know and just show up because he loves to talk about how his PhD at Berkeley started with community college when he was like 24. And just to show that, you know, you can go wherever you want starting at community college. So there's a lot of options there. So other reasons people go to community college besides all the options have to do with the finances. Right? So these are some little bit outdated statistics. The red line is 2013-14, but it gives you a good representative picture of it. You know, this is the tuition at a public 2-year school, around $1,500 or so. Tuition at a public 4-year in-state school is around $9,000, and then if you go into 4-year private schools, you know, you're looking at around $36,000 or so. So there is a significant difference in the cost of the education, depending if you go to community college or go straight into a 4-year. So a lot of our students will come to us for that first 2 years and then transfer and get their 4-year degree somewhere else because it'll save their family $15,000, $20,000 by doing so. So it can be a really good deal.
So I'll just pipe in real quickly there. The only other side of that coin is this is probably before aid. So that's the only thing is going to be, this is going to be kind of your big picture cost. Junior college will definitely be on the cheaper end, usually even after aid happens, but it is typically that's going to be like full sticker price before you get like merit or need-based aid for most. That would be my guess of that data there.
That is pre-aid, and certainly the bigger schools tend to have more financial aid. I will say that we have at Sierra College the Board of Governors fee waiver for all the community colleges in California, and so the vast majority of our students don't pay any tuition, depending on income levels and that kind of thing. But that's one reason. Another reason has to do with the instructors. And so at community colleges, most of your instructors are working in the field that they're teaching in. Right? Whereas at a big university, most of the professors are doing research in the field that they're working in. So you get a slightly different perspective from that. And so to give examples,
what happened there?
Some of the ones that are up there, you'll see our administration of justice classes are usually taught by police officers in the local community. You know, we have a mechatronics class. It's taught by someone who's an electrical engineer in the community, and he's working in that field every day. Same thing with our psychology classes. All of us that teach psychology either have private practices or have had private practices, so we're in that, in that field every day. And you find that with the vast majority of the instructors. They're there teaching because they want to share knowledge about the industry that they're working in. And so that's a slight difference. As you had mentioned, this is one of the other differences. When we think of looking at Sierra College specifically, and especially looking at the Tahoe Truckee campus, the campus that's right here in our backyard, our classes do look like this instead of this, right? Our typical class will have anywhere from 10 to 20 students in it. 20 is a big class on our campus, right? And so, for instance, if you take Intro to Psychology, you may have 20 students sitting in that classroom. You go to UC Davis and take Intro to Psych, and it looks like that. There's 300 to 400 students sitting in a large amphitheater type classroom. And so there's a different feel, for sure. If you are someone who likes that small school atmosphere, or you like that hands-on, getting a lot of contact with your instructors, that type of thing, then community college can be a great place to start. Other reasons for Sierra College, that personal attention that you get from your instructors. Our instructors, because they all tend to live here in the community, are really accessible. And you find that at most community colleges. They're there teaching every class, so you don't have teacher aides coming in and teaching the classes. They're willing to stay after, they all have office hours, but they'll often even meet students, where they need to meet them in order to help. So that personal attention is really quite different. One of the vicious rumors out there, I guess, about community college is that the professors don't have the qualifications that someone at a university would do. And a lot of that comes from the degree requirements, and it's true that to teach at a big university, you usually need a PhD. To teach at community college, you need a master's in that subject. And a PhD, it tends to be a really narrowly focused, specific thing in that area that that person has studied. And so if you want to study in that specific thing, then certainly that person is really, really qualified at a university. But the professors that are at community colleges are equally qualified and spend more time teaching because they're not doing the research end of it. And just to give some examples, this is Kurt Heisinger, who's our business professor. He's holding up a managerial accounting textbook there. He wrote that textbook, and that textbook is used in managerial accounting classes all over the country, both in community colleges and in four-year universities. So he's quite an expert in that area, and he's teaching here in Truckee because he wants to live here in Truckee and teach a lot versus doing the research. The other advantage is that the instructors all do live here. The majority of them live here, and so they know the community really well. And so, they know what it's like to go to Truckee High or to North Tahoe High School and have been in this community for a while. They know what it's like when we get a big powder day and everybody wants to be skiing. They have that inside kind of knowledge as well. I talked about Sierra College's Truckee campus being a really small campus. Sierra College has 3 different campuses. The main campus is actually down in Rockland near Sacramento, and that's our largest campus. It's about 17,000 to 18,000 students. Then we have another one in Nevada County near Grass Valley, and that campus is about 4,000 students. And then up here in Truckee, we're about 400 students. So quite different depending on which campus you're on. But the great thing up here is that we are small and you get that personal attention, but you have all the resources of a really big school. So for example, this is a map of all of the Rockland campus. That building up there is just the library on the Rockland campus. Right? This is our whole entire campus. That's the library on the Rockland campus. But we can get any book from that huge library within 2 days up here in Truckee. And so we have all of those resources right here in our backyard. And you get this feel of a small school, which is pretty nice. Are you all familiar with the academic enrichment program that we have?
Oh yeah.
So there's
free classes for the, is that the free classes for high school students? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Free classes for students that are in the Tahoe Truckee Unified School District, high school students. Any student 9th through 12th, as long as they kind of meet the grade requirements to come and they get permission from their counselor at the high school, then they can come and take college classes and for most of the classes get dual credit. So they get high school credit and they'll get college credit. A lot of students take advantage of that because it's a great head start into college. Sometimes people will ask, well, should I do the AP class or should I come take the college class? And I usually tell people, whichever instructor you think you like best, because you're going to get the most out of the class that way. One difference is on the APs, you have to get a certain score on the AP exam in order to get college credit. If you take the college class at Sierra College and you get a C or better, you get college credit for it without being one exam being dependent. So people with test anxiety who might be able to spread that out over multiple tests versus the one big test, sometimes the college class would be a way to go. The other nice thing about it is it's a good way to kind of see what the college environment's like, because college and high school are different, and it's a different culture being there. And so sometimes students who want to get a feel for that will come and take a class with us so they can see what it's like to have all adults in your class and that type of thing. So that's a little bit of the difference, but this is a great program. Talked about a lot of those in terms of the benefits of that academic enrichment program, and so I encourage you to talk to your students or think about it for yourself. Students can take classes coming up in the spring semester, which starts January 22nd, and see what might be a good fit for them. And it is free. It used to be $1 a class or $1 a credit, and now they changed it so it's completely free for students to come.
Yeah, so from the high school side on that, there is some huge benefits of taking some of these classes. There are a few stipulations that we put in place for our students, and some of those are that you're basically, like Christopher said, you're responsible for books, transportation. Those are the main kind of fiscal responsibilities on your part. Transportation is the largest part, and that's, for us at least here, Truckee's a little bit different because they're right next door, but for us at least, the transportation is the main reason why many times we don't see students in 9th or 10th grade taking coursework there, as well as some of where the classes align with some of our curriculum. It's usually our juniors and seniors we end up taking classes. Our most popular are the English classes. We have a kind of secondaries, probably our history classes and psychology, which you actually teach some of those classes, right?
Yeah.
The only other thing that we really try to go over is that students can, in terms of the dual credit, so dual credit is nice sometimes it actually is not nice, especially if you're trying to explore and expand your options in terms of like, hey, this nutrition class sounds kind of interesting. I've got a pretty full load at the high school. I'm not sure if I really want it. I'm not sure if I can put my full energy and attention into it. We do make you guys choose at the beginning if you're going to count it as dual credits. So you can't go there kind of screw around for half a semester and then get a D and be like, yeah, I don't really want this college level D on my transcript at the high school. So we do make you guys choose that ahead of time. You're going to say if you want it on the high school transcript or not. But you don't have to. You can choose to take it only for college credit as well, which basically gives you all of the same benefits. You still list it on things like college applications. You still list it. You still get the credits as long as it transfers to the school that you go to, which almost every CSU you see will give you credit for most of the classes that you guys offer. And there's a way that we actually check that. But it also does bypass some of those AP exams, which can be a benefit, especially if your child is a little bit testing averse. But yeah, there are some major benefits to doing that, and you can still save that same money without necessarily going the dual credit route. Some classes like English are naturally a good dual credit course because you need them for both high school and graduation, but others you might not need this particular course to reach your graduation requirements. And sometimes it takes a little bit of the weight off the student, but provides still the same exact benefit.
Yeah, and most of our classes are afternoon and evening, so they're after school's ended here,
Mm-hmm.
and the students can go there. And we have had students, we had a student from North Tahoe High probably 6 years or 7 years ago now that took so many high school credits that she was able to do her bachelor's in 3 years instead of 4. And so she saved an entire year's worth of college tuition by taking classes while she was high school. Now, that's the extreme. Most students come and take 1 or 2 classes, but even that gives you more flexibility when you get to college in terms of what classes you're going to take. So that's the academic enrichment program. In terms of majors, these are the majors that you can complete the entire major on the Tahoe Truckee campus. And so you'll see a variety of things from administration of justice and business, early childhood education, psychology, natural sciences. There's a variety of degrees there. If you're willing to go to Rockland or take online classes, then that list of majors gets much bigger. And we have, just about everything in here. Everything from, art history all the way to welding, and everything in between that you can get degrees in. Because we're smaller, we don't have as many classes up on this campus, and so for some of these degrees you do need to take classes at other campuses, or we have a lot of them online as well.
So the one on the other screen is the ones you can complete fully?
Yeah, you complete fully here in the campus here.
I might be ruining your thunder, but are you going to can you talk a little bit about the associate's degree for transfer?
Yes, I'll talk about that right now. So people ask about transferring and what kind of agreements there are with different schools and things. And so throughout all the California community colleges, there is a system set up that's called the Degree for Transfer, ADT, Associate's Degree for Transfer. And what that is an agreement between the community colleges and the CSUs, where if you get that degree, then you're guaranteed admission into one of the CSUs. Not necessarily the one of your choice, but you're going to get into one of them. And then it gives you some benefits toward the one you want to get into, things like a GPA bump, so that it'll take whatever your GPA is and add a little bit to it, so when you're competing with other students, that helps. The other big thing is if you have an ADT degree, they promise that you will be able to finish your bachelor's degree in 60 more credits. And in 2 years, they'll make sure that those credits are available to you. Because one of the challenges a lot of students are having now is they get into a 4-year school and they can't get the classes that they need, and so they end up being there 5 years or 6 years. And so if you come from a California community college and you go to a CSU and you have an ADT, they promise that they'll get you the classes you need. And I was talking to a counselor at Chico, And she was saying that they have run really small sections of classes sometimes because they had ADT students who needed them to graduate, and they had made that promise to them, so they ran the class that they might not otherwise have run. So that's a big benefit to that. With the UCs, and it's not all of the UCs, but the majority of the UCs, there's something called a TAG, which is a Transfer Agreement Guarantee. And that is something that students can set up when they first start off at a community college. If they start off and they go, gosh, I know I want to go to this certain school, then they can set up an agreement with that school that says, if I take these classes and I get these grades, then I'm automatically in. And so we'll have students set those up a lot of times and then follow that course of study and then automatically get into the UC they wanted. But yeah, great question. Some resources. One of the things that's really helpful when students come into college is to have an idea of what that end goal is. It saves a ton of time, and it can save them money as well. And so, in terms of getting an associate's degree, you do have general education classes. So usually for a semester or so, you can play around with a variety of classes and still have them counting toward your degree and not end up taking classes that you didn't need. But after that first semester or so, it really helps to know where you're going in order to get the classes that are really going to be beneficial and not have to take extra semesters to get there. It even helps to know where you want to transfer to, because what classes you take at the community college changes somewhat depending on what major you want to transfer in and also what school you want to transfer in, because each of the four-year schools have their own requirements. And so if we know from the beginning what the student wants to do in terms of degree, in terms of transfer, that kind of thing, then we can make a really detailed plan. So this website was one that was put up with a kind of a cooperative project with the California community colleges to help people look at possible careers. And it talks about the career name, and it talks about what the salary range is in that career, and then also what degree you need. And so you can see, if you get an associate's degree, what the income level might be. Say you get an associate's degree in accounting versus a certificate in accounting, what the income level might be. So it's a fun one for students to play around on and start to get a feel for where they want to go. It also has an app there at the bottom, so they can do it on their phone if they want as well. This is another great site that the community college system has put out called California Career Cafe. And it's just cacareercafe.com. And it's great for helping students who have no idea what they want to do really explore more. And so the first section where it says explore there, if you go into the, or into the start section actually, there's a series of, I think it's 6 different modules that take students through learning about themselves so they can then see what career might be a good fit for who they are. And it's watching videos, it's worksheets, there's lots of different ways that the modules try to get students to engage with it. And then it goes into exploring careers that might be a good fit. So it's a great resource for students as well who come in like, I don't know what I want to do. All of my students that come in and meet with me the first semester and say I'm undecided, I send them this way, or I have them keep doing career counseling with me, because the sooner they can figure that out, the better off they'll be in terms of getting where they want to go more quickly and more affordably. So speaking of affordability, we talked about how community college is less expensive to begin with. There is also a great deal of financial aid. And I'll say that's true for four-year schools as well. I tell people never let money be a reason not to go to college. There is more money available to help students go to college than I think just about any other thing out there. It's much easier, for instance, to get a student loan than it is to get a car loan. And a lot of schools provide a lot of grant money. And so I mentioned the Board of Governors fee waiver at the bottom there. That covers tuition depending on family income level and that type of thing. There are also grants on top of that. I was working with a student the other day who has all of her tuition paid for, and she's getting another $3,500 per semester in grant money, which is free money you don't have to pay back. And just based on family income and the classes she's taking. And then there's also loans. And so what will happen is you complete the FAFSA, which is the financial aid, the federal financial aid form, and then request that that be sent to the school you want to go to. So you can put Sierra College on there. They'll send that to the school, and then the school's financial aid department takes that information and decides what you qualify for, and they offer all that financial aid. really recommend, with the California DREAM Act too, that's available for residents and non-residents, U.S. residents and non-residents as well. There's money available both directions. I do recommend people apply early for that. You can do your FAFSA right now for next fall. The earlier you fill the FAFSA out and get that kind of financial aid ball rolling, the sooner you get the information back, and that can be really important in deciding what school to go to. Right? If somebody's applied to 3 or 4 different schools and one of them gives them a great financial aid package and the other doesn't, that can make a difference. And so they've actually started moving when you can do the FAFSA up earlier and earlier so that people can get results sooner, so they can use that information in their decision making. So financial aid is available. After enrolling, once students are enrolled, there's a lot of great resources available to help students out. And one of the challenges with community colleges often is because they are mostly commuter schools, students are living at home or living on their own and then driving in to take classes and then leaving, is that oftentimes students don't take advantage of all the resources that are there. And so I definitely encourage students to take advantage of those resources. There's lots of great research and evidence out there that shows the more involved a student is with their school, the more likely they are to graduate. And so that involvement can be social, it can be extracurricular, there's lots of ways to get involved. These are some just of the things we have at Sierra College. In the Tahoe Truckee campus, we have an on-campus orientation where students that are new coming in the fall all get together. And it's really about getting to know other students and connecting, but then also learning about resources. We also have a mentor program. And so any new student who is taking 9 or more credits automatically gets assigned a faculty mentor. And that person is just kind of a go-to person they can check in with, ask questions to, and that person can point them in the direction of other resources if they need them. You saw on there campus clubs. We do have a variety of campus clubs. Some people don't know this, but on our campus in Truckee, we have the 3rd hardest Frisbee golf course in the state of California. So we do have students go out and play Frisbee golf, but we have a variety of different clubs. A good business club is going. We have an outdoor recreation club. So there are ways for students to get involved. We also have free tutoring. And so any student gets free tutoring. We have both online tutoring and on-campus tutoring. And students can take advantage of that. The other thing that I don't think I put on a slide up here, but I did bring a handout. We do have these student success workshops, which are now open to the community. They're not just available to students. And there's a variety of things on here, things like effective note-taking or time management strategies or money management strategies. We have resume writing and job interviewing skills coming up, those types of workshops. And most of them are about an hour long, and they're kind of scattered at different days of the week and times a day throughout the semester. But these are open to the community, but also a great resource for students that are there. And Mr. Ream's trying to get me to video them, so maybe soon at some point they'll be on video, so students can take advantage of them that way as well. DSPs, so we have a program for students with disabilities, and a lot of our students that come into community college maybe had IEPs or 504 plans in high school that helped them get some accommodations that made it so they could succeed in high school. We have those same programs in college. And it's in the community college system, it's called DSPs, which is Disability Support Programs and Services. And so all a student needs to do is come in, I'm the DSPS counselor on the campus up here, and let me know it's something they're interested in, and there's an application they fill out, they bring in a copy of their IEP or 504, and then we can set up accommodations for them as well. So that's a resource that's there. Before I get into the enrollment process, one thing is just about resources. This is important for students to keep in mind. There's a big difference between college and high school in that in high school, students often have a lot of people looking over their shoulder. And if they start to go astray, all those people jump in and say, hey, we need to get you back on track and help you out. And even if the student's not asking for it, the people jump in and try to help them out, which is wonderful. In college, because everybody is considered an adult and treated like adults, we assume that if someone's not speaking up, that everything's going well. And so one of the things I always tell new students is make sure if you start to have challenges in some way, you come and ask, because we have a ton of resources to help students, but you'll get them if you ask for them. And so you have to be proactive in that way and come and ask for those resources. But if you do, there's a lot of resources out there to help out. Questions about any of this so far? Any questions? Okay, so what's the enrollment process look like? How do you become a student at a California community college? I'll talk you through our enrollment process at Sierra College, but know that most community colleges have a very similar process to ours. So ours starts here. This is our home page, and you'll see a big thing that comes up saying apply now, and there's a place to click. Also up in the top corner, no matter what page you're on our website, you'll see that apply button come up. And so that's where you start, is just starting with that online application. And then these are the next steps. So you complete the application online. Takes 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes to go through, and it's mostly demographic information. There's no essays to write. There's no competitive application process, any of that kind of thing. Anybody who applies, who's a high school graduate or 18, gets in. And so it's really just filling out the information. Then you do want to submit your high school transcripts, and that way we know what classes we can place you in, especially in terms of math and English. Having that high school transcript really helps for that. My Sierra is our student portal, so once a student's applied, then they can activate their My Sierra, and once that's activated, that's where the student wants to go to get all of their Sierra College information. So anything about financial aid, all of that will come to their Sierra College email versus their other email that they might have. So I always remind students, once you've applied and set up your My Sierra, be sure to go back and check that email, because that's where you get all your important Sierra College information. There is an online orientation that students go through, which is a video that they watch. To be honest, that's more about the Rockland campus than it is about the other campuses, but it does give a nice big picture. And then that on-campus orientation I mentioned is really a great way for students to learn about the Tahoe Truckee campus specifically. And then if a student needs to take an assessment test, and so maybe their math and English from high school placed them into one particular class, but they would like to take a higher class and they think they're better in math and English than their class said. They can do an assessment test, and that test is another way to get placed in. Then you come and meet with the counselor, so you can come and meet with me, and we'll sit down and create an education plan. And so especially if the student knows what they want to do, if they know their major, if they know that they want to get an associate's degree and stop there, or they want to get a certificate, or if they want to transfer on, then we can create what's called a comprehensive education plan, which will take them from the first semester all the way to their goal. And we can put it in the system so they can see exactly what classes they would need to take each semester, and they can see that big picture plan. And we find that really helps students stick with it and make it to completion when they can see the big picture at the beginning. We can also build it as we go along each semester, if students want to do it that way, but really encourage people to have that big plan. They don't have to stick to that plan. They can come in and change that plan anytime they want. It doesn't commit them to the courses. It just shows them what that big picture could look like. So I recommend students do that, and then register for classes. And you do that through that My Sierra portal. You go in and register for the classes that you want to take.
A couple things that, if you don't mind me adding on this, is going to be, so a big thing, huge, about any post-secondary option, but especially the junior college option, especially if you're like looking at the transfer pathway and that kind of stuff, to help you make sure that you're meeting those timelines is that exact meeting, like going in with a plan and having an idea of at least somewhat what you want out of your experience at any college, junior college, four-year college, trade school, whatever it might be, but help ensure that you're meeting that plan, because there will be, if you say I want to transfer within 2 years, you're going to, if you want to take 5 credits at a time or 6 credits at a time, it's not going to take you 2 years. It's going to take you a lot more than that. So having that plan in mind really helps you stay motivated and kind of know what you're going in with. The other thing that I've had conversations with students in the past that I encourage you guys about is if you think you're going to have to be working and stuff like that, so working in college, like understand that it'll probably take you a little bit longer. You might not be taking a full, I don't know, what's a full load at?
15 credits
15,
a semester.
Which is like 5 classes.
Yeah.
You might only be able to take potentially 3 or 4 classes at a time, which could impact the length of that transfer process or the completion of a degree process. And so just knowing that ahead of time and kind of being, working with Mr. Old and being able to know kind of like what your goals are, plus like what your potential limitations is not the right word, but your outside factors that might impact, your process through that to that goal. Because sometimes I have students go in and I want to finish in 2 years, but I can only take 2 classes at a time, and they get frustrated and end up maybe not completing that degree or not completing that transfer path because they kind of just get bogged down in kind of the process of it. And that's for any college process out there. They have the same issues at the 4-year college level as well, of just students not being able to commit that full amount of time maybe required to take what would be considered a full load to complete that degree process.
Yeah, and we can also take the guesswork out of it for students. I had a student last week who came in and she'd been there 2 semesters and taken a variety of courses that didn't count for her major and they didn't count toward her general eds. And she was already going to end up having more, by the time she finishes the major classes, having more credits than she needs. And so, she took 3 different classes that she didn't need to take. And if she had done a little planning ahead of time, she could have saved herself. Do you have a question?
Yeah, was 15 credits was a majority of the junior college, that's a full load?
Yeah, so, and it gets confusing because people talk about a full load in terms of financial aid,
Right.
and that often is 12 credits.
Yeah.
But to get a 2-year degree in 2 years without taking summer sessions
Right.
is 15 per semester, because it's
Okay.
60 units total.
Okay.
And so how about initiating this process, say for fall 2018? When would you start, going to the website and getting your, because it seems to me like if you have to get initiated into the community college system. I forgot the name of the one website where you need to register first, and then at some point thereafter you can register for courses and things, and it seems like that's when sometime around the schedule comes out for the, say, fall 2018 or whatever it may be, and just,
Yeah.
is there a way to sort of do that earlier, or is that just the way it is? Or?
So you can do all of the applying and the planning and everything earlier, and then there's specific dates when people can start to enroll. But it's really helpful to do that other parts early, because especially if you're going to, for instance, take an online course, they fill up the day registration starts. And a lot of times we'll have students who will come in a few days after registration started, and they'll do their application, and they'll do their FAFSA, and then it's 2 weeks later they're ready to register for classes, and all the classes are full. Yeah, and so I do have those registration dates coming up here in a second. I'll show you when people can start. But I say the earlier you start looking into it and planning, the better. I think it might even be next. No. If you ever have trouble with that registration process, just give us a call or come by. For instance, the application, there's a 2-part application that you have to do, and so sometimes students will get confused in the first part and the second part, and you actually end up getting a password and stuff for the first part, but that's not your Sierra College one for the second part. And so there's a couple pieces in there that can be confusing, but always feel free to give us a call or even just stop by. I encourage students to come and sit down. We have a bunch of computers right there by the front desk, and they can do the application right there on those computers, and then they can ask questions as they go. We have a lot of students that come and do their FAFSA for financial aid in there, and they can sit down and as questions come up, there's someone right there that can answer those questions. So I definitely encourage people to take advantage of that. Here are those dates. So spring class registration, if you have thinking about academic enrichment, right, then, did I flip those? Oh no, that's right, November 16th. So classes don't start until January 22nd, but that registration starts November 16th. The reality is, with our campus being so small, you can register for classes later and still find room in the classroom, almost up until a week or so before classes start. But to make sure you get the classes and to make sure classes don't get canceled, because sometimes if enrollment is low, they will cancel a class for low enrollment. And then we have students show up the week before class wanting to enroll, and we're like, sorry, we don't have that anymore because people didn't register early enough. So I definitely recommend you register early. But if you're going to take classes on one of the other campuses or online, you really do need to register right around when that registration date begins in order to get availability of what you want. Summer and fall registration begins in April. So academic enrichment is always a day after the new students, but new student will be April 25th, will be registration for new students, and then academic enrichment will be the 26th, starting in there. And then fall classes begin in August. And so our classes do sometimes begin a little bit before the high school classes.
Yes.
Because we're August 20th, and so that's good. Sometimes students forget that, and they wait, if they're doing academic enrichment, they wait for high school to start, and they realize they already missed a couple weeks of their college class. Or they've been dropped from their college class because they didn't show up for the first class. So those dates are good to keep in mind. Last couple things. Sierra College is one of the few community colleges in California that does have dorms. So down on the Rockland campus, we do have dorms where students can live and kind of get that whole living on campus experience. And so they do fill up really quickly, so it's a good thing to apply for early. Even if you're thinking dorms in the fall, there's actually a housing form on the website that you fill out now saying that I'm interested in housing for the fall. And then come April, they send out a contract and says, if you're really interested, send your money in, and here we go. And it's first come, first served. Whoever gets those in first gets in the dorm. But it is a neat option that you don't find at a lot of community colleges, is to have dorms. And they're planning to build a new set of dorms sometime in the next handful of years. I just heard about all the finalizing of plans that was going on for that. So we'll actually probably about double, if not more than that, our capacity in terms of dorms coming up. So that is an option. And then, as I mentioned, the enrollment process at most community colleges is the same. And this map, and I saw it was in the front of that packet as well, shows all 114 community colleges, and I need to update that as well. There are 114 now. But serving about 2.1 million students in the state of California. So there are a lot of students going to community colleges, and they're all over the state. One of the things students often ask about is, if I go to the community college that's closest to the college I want to transfer to, does that help? And the answer is sometimes. And so each community college has agreements with other colleges, and oftentimes they're based on geographic location, but not always. And I have known students that have gotten burned on that, where they went to a community college because it was next door to this other college, and it turned out they didn't have an agreement, and so it didn't help them to be there, and they could have been somewhere else. And so it's always good just to ask about those agreements, whatever community college someone's thinking about going to. And I think that is about all the information I had. What other questions do you all have?
I think that one of the question I had, so the 15 credits, that's only if they want to get a degree in the 2 years after junior college. If they're planning to transfer somewhere else, they don't necessarily need that, do they need?
So it depends on where they want to transfer. If they're going to transfer to a CSU or a UC, then they need to do 60 transferable credits before they can transfer, which is an associate's degree. So you might as well get the degree.
Yeah.
On occasion, especially with some of the STEM majors, it makes sense to do what you need to do to get into the transfer school, and that may not get you your associate's degree, even though you do 60 credits because of general eds and some of those patterns. But usually, you're going to get your associate's degree on your way. And I recommend people go ahead and petition for their degree and get it, because you never know what might happen in that next 2 years, and at least you then have that associate's.
And I'm sure that depends on the schools.
Yeah, if you transfer to UNR, for example, I mean, all the California public schools require 60 to transfer in. But UNR, for example, you can transfer after 24. And so, we have students that'll come to us for 2 semesters and then transfer in as sophomores to UNR. And so that different states are a little bit different.
Okay, and that's because they're Nevada.
And that's because they're in Nevada and because that's how they've chosen to do it.
Right.
With UNR, just because we're talking about it, there is something called the WUI as well, if you haven't heard that, the Western Union Exchange, which makes it so if a student has a 3.25 GPA in their college classes at community college, then they can basically get pretty close to in-state tuition even if they live in California.
It's actually called the Nevada Advantage Program now.
They
changed it just at UNR. It's WUI everywhere else, so like if you looked at Montana State and that kind of stuff.
So, are you sure? Because there's another one that UNR just came out with, which is a 3.0 and it offers less money.
Yeah, so I think that they changed. It's the same exact thing, but I think they changed what they're calling it. They just relabeled it something different and brought it kind of in house because they came up and talked to us about it specifically. Like a year ago, last year, year before maybe. Just look at one of them at least. They might still, if you looked up UNR WUI, it probably leads you to the right place too. But I think they might have recalled it something different, just changed the name of it.
So a question that I didn't understand there was, I thought it was only coming in as freshmen. The WUI's still, if you did junior college in California, you could still, does it have to be one of ours that's like Sierra College, or can it be any junior college in California they acknowledge? I'll have to check there.
I think any community college in California, but I would double check on that.
Okay.
I'm not
So all that is different, because I went to UNR, and at the time, they
Good
had
neighbor
what they called the
Good
Good
neighbor.
Neighbor
yeah.
program.
They got rid of that.
They
Yeah,
got
no
rid of
more.
that. So you don't have to be on the border, basically, to take advantage.
No, it's
Back in the days,
anyone in
like
California,
Placer,
anyone that western area.
Colorado, Mono, Inyo, Nevada counties, just kind of the bordering counties,
Yeah, they changed
Right.
that. And the
They changed
WUI is
that.
all these western states, and so it's coming from California, it can be coming from Idaho down.
Cool. Okay.
And they have the 2 different levels now depending on GPA, and you get more money for a better GPA.
Just look up the WUI and it'll tell us.
It'll tell you all that, yeah.
Cool.
A couple things, if you don't mind, me adding just from the high school side of things. We work on 2 different sides of the desks, but we often see very similar stuff. And so, number one is if you haven't been to Sierra College campus, I actually had not been there until just a couple weeks ago, and I actually got a full tour and all that stuff. It's an awesome campus. If you haven't been up there, it's small, but it's like brand new. It's pretty sweet.
Got my sense.
So I'd highly encourage checking it out. And then just know, like, you do have the full resources of if you haven't been to Rockland is also a great campus as well. A couple things just generally about junior college. So we also have the other one, or the other one, another close junior college. So Sierra College is the college that we typically send the vast majority of our students who are seeking out that 2-year college route to. For a couple different reasons and all the stuff that Christopher said, but in addition, it's close, so that's a big thing. So in terms of saving money, the reason why there's 114 junior colleges is because they really try to spread them out. The idea is typically that they're supposed to be serving the local community of students and adults and people returning for degrees and things like that. But more and more we're seeing students going out of town as well. So like Santa Barbara City College is another popular one. I actually took classes at Cuesta when I was in my college kind of career. And so we do have a number of students that are at Cuesta and are looking at Cuesta. So there are different ways. You can go to any of the 114. But in terms of money saving options, parents might not like to hear it. Maybe students won't either, but living at home is actually your biggest bang for the buck. If you qualify for that BOG waiver, if you qualify for some grants, and you take essentially, the housing and room and board costs out of the equation, that is where you're going to save the most money. If you go to college in Santa Barbara, you're going to pay $15,000 a year in your room and board, or more, and that kind of does make the overall cost skyrocket in terms of the junior college prospect. The room and board is pretty flat usually across the board, whether you go to junior college, 4-year college, trade school, or work. Whereas the tuition does fluctuate, but that's a big money saver right there. A couple other things that I'm trying to think of that when we work with students that maybe they'll come back and say, oh, I wish I would have known that. So like Christopher said, the FAFSA is definitely something that I encourage. I encourage every single student, high school student, to apply for it. The worst they can tell you is you don't qualify for anything. But you don't. The other thing is sometimes you don't know what you won't qualify for. You can make $1 billion a year, and you might qualify for some sort of scholarship that maybe you go find all the billionaires out there, and they'll say, "What's a little bit more money?" They'll say, "In my pocket is what it is, and that's what I want." So like, if you want to save some money, fill out the FAFSA. The California Dream Act is also a great resource too, because it also gives you in-state tuition. If you headed out of state, say for example, if you went to TMCC, just across the border, you'd be getting out-of-state tuition, and that ups costs quite a bit. And so being able to pay that in-state tuition in California is pretty important. The only other thing that I think that I will talk about briefly is really the when students are looking at budgeting for college. I would say about 9 times out of 10, junior college ends up in the long run, kind of like when you look at it dollars and cents, cheaper. The tuition is a huge component there. But I'd say 10% or so of the time, it kind of can surprise you. Sometimes, you know, when you get the FAFSA back, it's going to say your EFC, your expected family contribution. And so your EFC determines essentially how much you should be paying. That doesn't always happen, but you should be paying for college. And so if you have an EFC of $0, okay, meaning you're typically you're a low-income family or a low-income student, that EFC is 0. That's 0 at junior college, that's 0 at Cal Poly, it's 0 at UC Berkeley. Okay, and the college's job from there is to try to mitigate those costs altogether. Okay, some of those larger schools with larger costs involved can't get down to 0, and that's a gap. That's what that's called. And so that's sometimes where, you know, you might not choose to go that option if you have a $20,000 gap. But depending on the type of aid that you might qualify for, that the cost might be pretty flat across the board, and that's where kind of the shopping around needs to come into play. Is like, you know, like you said, money should never be a barrier. The hard part is we do it backwards here in America. We apply or we get involved, and then we figure out in the spring how much it's actually going to cost us to go to school. So I encourage students to kind of apply broadly. Okay, so try it out, see what your options are. If you know you're kind of on the cusp of like, I'm thinking about junior college, find a junior college, put in your application, apply to Sierra College. I know schools out there we haven't really quite jumped on the bandwagon, but I'm not against it. That every single student applies to their local JC. Doesn't matter what, they all apply. That way they have an option, they have a route if they want to. We haven't gotten there quite yet. I would not be against it, but it's definitely some work. But definitely, like, students need options, and so you guys as parents, opening up all those doors and really helping them walk through is kind of essentially our end goal for this year. I had another thought that I wanted to cover, but I'm blanking on what it was right now. If you guys have any questions about any of this stuff, I'm going to invite Christopher back in the next couple of weeks or months, and probably in the morning time during our RTI session. He came last year, and we'll set up an opportunity for students to bring in their computers and basically get that same help that might happen at Sierra College here during RTI if they want to, you know, get help with applications. I'm also here every day, so you know, I filled out enough of this, you know, Sierra College application in my day to understand kind of some of the ins and outs. And if I can't figure it out, I have, you know, Sierra College main line on speed dial, so I can, you know, quickly get a hold of Diana or Christopher or Dr. Bateman or anybody, like, and really kind of they're very helpful and so super supportive. And the nice thing about that small college feel is like you said, they're very responsive. Like, and you know, if there's ever an issue, if there's ever a question, a live person's there to answer the phone. They get back to you quickly in emails. Like, and if you try calling Berkeley right now, you'll sit for days on hold. So there's something to be said about that kind of personal feel, especially for freshmen, just entering the college world. Sometimes it is a safer or softer place to land, where sometimes going to some of these larger schools, depending on like academic maturity, comfortableness of like being ready to be out on their own, making good decisions, that kind of stuff, sometimes it opens up more doors for trouble to come in and make bad decisions or make choices that maybe they wouldn't have made if it was in a little smaller environment where people kind of knowing their name and stuff like that. And so that's something to be said about those pieces. But I would encourage you guys, consider applying to junior college. Pick one of the 114, but we obviously have a very great relationship with Sierra College. But there's a bunch out there that you guys can consider. But keeping your options open is always my mantra, especially during senior year, because you never know what will happen. You never know what financial aid package comes down the pipe. You never know what admissions decisions on those competitive four-year college applications. You might think we might have all thought we'd done our great research, and they all come back as no. And then what are we going to do? So having a bunch of different avenues available to us is never a bad thing.
So what about, you mentioned Berkeley, so I know Berkeley is one of, like Berkeley, Cal Poly, and I'm sure there's one or two other, they don't have transfer agreements. And so how, it's case by case based on major and merit and all that, or is there any kind of?
Cal Poly has a transfer agreement with Cuesta.
No, they don't.
They don't? I just read it on their thing.
From Cal Poly?
Yeah, I think
From
there's.
Cuesta, they have a GPA with the 2
Oh, really?
point.
Maybe they changed it a they didn't have anything.
That's where he's looking.
They may
at.
have a separate agreement outside of the system-wide agreements.
Right.
And so the tag is system-wide, and there are schools, and I think the ones you listed aren't part of the tag. And so then, yes, it's just competitive admissions with all the other people transferring in. I will say that the state has set numbers around how many transfer students each school needs to have. And so a lot of times the transfer admissions is much less competitive than the non-transfer admissions because they're trying to make sure they meet that number of transfer students that they need to have. But yeah, with those schools that don't have the guarantee, it is just the competitive based on what you took and what grades you got and that type of thing.
And I guess along with that, somewhere along the line, I recall reading, you're given preference as a transfer from a community college over somebody transferring within, say, a CSU or UC or whatever. Is that still the case, or?
You mean like transferring
Yeah,
after
say I'm
they've
coming from
started?
Cuesta and I wanna go to Cal Poly,
Right.
and maybe I'm at San Diego State and I wanna go to Cal Poly, and the GPA is the same. Who's gonna get the preference there?
Yeah, I don't know. My guess is it would depend school to school in terms of who would get that preference. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that would be a great question if you have a school in mind to give the admissions department a call. In general, kind of most of the students we probably see are going to be falling in one of those two categories of high school students, first-time freshmen, and then transfer students who are leaving. We typically wouldn't see the San Diego State looking at Cal Poly, so
Sure,
I wouldn't even.
thinking down the line a little
Yeah,
bit.
but yeah, I don't actually
That's a
know
great
the answer to
question.
that one. The other thing that I'll just mention too, and then we'll wrap up, is there is a misconceived perception that like junior college is kind of the second option, like, and you should do this and then you should do this. That is a completely misconceived notion. Like that they have, like you mentioned, they write books. Like they are up in my own personal perspective from both attending university, graduate school, and junior college is the most applicable learning that I got. It was both in my master's program, which was taught by a lot of some adjunct professors, as well as my junior college experience. So the stuff that I use every day, the stuff that I take away and actually hands-on use. Theory is wonderful. Research is wonderful, and you should understand that. And some specific programs and majors, definitely there's a higher emphasis on some of that. But in terms of like the practicality of my learning, this is just me. I felt that those two systems serve that learning experience better, just because I have tangible tools to take away with me on an everyday basis. I never sit down and think to myself, like, am I going to use cognitive behavioral theory with the student, or am I going to be Rogerian with them and like sit down and kind of like, I'm like, what's going on with this kid? Like, let's think about this. And having those foundations are important, but really the hands-on stuff is the stuff that I really value the most out of my experience. For someone who on that note though, like the student who maybe is a little bit kind of on that line, maybe academically, maybe maturity wise, like they might not, if they have a specific goal in mind, say, a really kind of like uppity school, we'll just use Berkeley for an example. Difficult school to get into, very rigorous to get into. However, a student that maybe has that as a goal, they can attend, pending that research of that transfer process and that competitive process to transfer in there. They can do that. A couple years ago, we had a student that went down to actually in Pierce College in LA, and then worked really hard in Pierce College. I don't know, I haven't checked recently, but they were admitted to UCLA as a direct transfer and got a bunch of money. Just recently, we found out a student actually out of Lake Tahoe Community College in South Lake attended for 2 years, got a bunch of money, and is then going to Berkeley as a physics major. So it's a pretty great option, especially, and that some of those students were strong students, but probably not admissible as a first-time freshman to Berkeley or UCLA. Like their numbers just were not there. They might have had a poor freshman year or a bad start or a couple classes that really had them struggle, and they really needed those extra years potentially to kind of grow into their academic maturity level to be successful, as well as find the true level of understanding and learning at that junior college level before they stepped into the next level that they then pursued on after that. So it's a really nice avenue as well to help students reach whatever goal they want to, that maybe their high school career started out poorly, or wasn't quite what they were looking for, they made some choices, or had a rough time. It's a great option really to bridge some of those gaps as well.
One of the areas that we see more and more students coming into is with career and technical education to get certain certificates for their profession, because one of the things that a lot of students are finding is they get their bachelor's degree and they step out in the job market, and it's not as rosy as they'd hoped it'd be. And one of the things that helps a lot is having specific technical skills, or specific training in an area that's needed in that profession they're trying to get into. And so they may have their wonderful degree with all their theory behind it, but they haven't ever done anything hands-on with it. And so coming and getting a career technical training in something can be really helpful. So we do have a lot of students coming in for those certificates in a specific area, especially in the kind of tech world. There's a lot of certificates that can help with career advancement and that kind of thing as well.
Well, unless you guys have any other questions, I want to thank you guys for spending a little bit of time with us and letting us share a little about the junior college process. If you guys have additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out to either of us. Christopher's got his cards up here, and then you know where to find me.
Yeah, there's also that workshop list up here, and there's a list of the spring classes, and some pens and keychains and stickers and any of that kind of stuff that you'd like.